Good afternoon. Welcome to our Igniting the Spark series. My name is Manpriya Ailwadhi. I'm a senior paralegal here at Ignition. Today, I'm joined by Yousif Oghanna, Chief of Staff at Togather. Yousif has a depth of experience, as well as his current role at Togather. He's also an angel investor for various pre-seed and seed stage companies and chairman of Board of Advisors to the 93% Club. Welcome, Yousif. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Yeah, very well. Thanks, Manpriya. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. The sun is shining, so that just puts a smile on everyone's face. I'm really excited to learn more about yourself, Together, and your experience with working with us. So I'll just get straight to the questions. So briefly, what does the business do and its purpose?
Yeah, sure. So Together is the UK's leading food and drink experience partner for live events. So we're essentially an operating system that works with clients to deliver better experiences to their event goers. We're a two-sided marketplace, as well as have software capabilities depending on the kind of user. But really, the reason that we exist is to ensure that the sort of food, drink, venue experience side of any event is as great as it can be. We've begun life as a street food marketplace, since then become more of a 360 intelligence platform, working with a whole spectrum of different organizers and event users, ranging from festivals, corporate parties, sporting venues and stadiums. It's a sort of real who's who of the UK's most iconic kind of event organizers, events and venues. Yeah, our client list, it runs from anyone from Live Nation, who do either wireless festivals, through to Amazon, BBC, JP Morgan. And yeah, across all of those, we try and do the same thing, which is make their events better for everyone.
What originally sparked the idea for Together, as well as you joining the business?
So I joined the business about a year into its inception. So the spark for the business actually came from the co-founders, Hugo and Digby, who I knew of and had done a bit of work with. So that they worked in the music and the festival industry, and they kept getting approached by event organizers to understand if they could help them curate lineups for these events, food and drink suppliers. And they realized that organizers didn't really have a good place to go to find fantastic operators and independent businesses for that. And really, that's what sparked the idea of Together. My own spark was more personalized, working in management consulting before joining Together. I spent 5 years working with FTSE 100 boards on sort of large strategic projects, things ranging from kind of all design through to benchmarking. And it was really interesting work, but I always wanted to sort of do the next step of the so what, get my hands stuck in business building. And when I learned what Hugo and Digby were building, I was really keen to get my hands stuck in. And they were raising for a small angel round. I happened to know a little bit more about numbers than they did, so I was sort of moonlighting, helping them do that. And then when that was successful, I joined as a generalist. And when a company's that small and you join, you wear sort of quite a few different hats. So I wore an FD and ops director hat really at the beginning. And then as we grew, my role evolved into what's now a chief of staff, so a more strategic role, sitting at the kind of cross section of finance, board governance, investor relations, and working closely with the founders really. But yeah, it's been a great journey the last 8 years.
Wow. Thank you for that. And in terms of the challenges that you've experienced, what's the toughest one you've faced so far?
This is probably the same answer for anyone in the events industry, but without a doubt, COVID was the biggest challenge, and then sort of rescaling. When we built the business, there was a specific sort of thesis in mind and certain goals that we were, building towards, and we've seen really good traction and success off the back of those. But as an events business, overnight in that period, our revenue effectively went to zero, and festivals were cancelled, weddings cancelled, postponed, everything kind of evaporated. And the question, stopped being sort of how do we grow, but it was how do we kind of ensure that we can handhold the users and the everyone on our marketplace as much as we can and help. And what does this business look like, on the other side? And so that was a pretty tricky period. We were sort of rolling with the punches as much as any other business had to. But we've got a really, really great team and really great investors. And so we were really transparent and with them, and they really held to the conviction that we had about the future being in live events and not, this big transition to digital.
Yeah.
Our investors backed us and we were able to come out really, really strongly and quickly on the other side of that. That also meant that we had the second chapter of the challenge, which in some ways was harder, which was rescaling, refinding like our thesis and why in a slightly changing events world. I guess, energizing and our supply base, reacquiring users. So it was challenging to do that without kind of, overextending ourselves. But again, what got us through was a really strong team, strong investors, and it was a great learning curve for how to run a business.
And in terms of advice that you would give to individuals within your role, what would you give?
So for my role specifically, I think you have to understand that your role is to not be the sort of focal point or the hero. Your role is to kind of interrogate and sometimes do the uncelebrated work. And I think the best people staff that I work with are ones that make everyone else, their founders in particular, look really good. I think that similarly in my role, you're both kind of blessed and burdened with information. Same for a lot of FDs, but I think that you need to turn that into a blessing. You have a view of the business that nobody else has. You have a wealth of information at your fingertips. And so I think my advice would be think about how you can use that and circulate it around the business in as a effective way as you can. So it's not sort of telling people what to do necessarily, but ensuring that everyone's got the right data to be making the right decisions in the business at any one time.
I'm sure you've achieved many things. What's the one that you're most proud of and why?
I think being part of a sort of fast scaling startup is that you get to do a lot of firsts and learn a lot. And I think I'm proud of a lot of these sort of firsts. That's anything from sort of the earlier days. It was types of fundraising rounds we did. Like I said, our investors have always been really supportive, but we don't take that for granted that we've got such a great cap table. And I'm proud of those things like first corporate activity and M&A that we did, and sort of transform the business in that respect. That I'm really proud of that. But I think probably the proudest thing is just the scale of the events that we're working with at the moment. Those festivals that I named earlier will be delivering the full food and drinks lineup at those, and they're like my friends have heard of those, and so it's really easy to kind of draw that link and say like, okay, yeah, that's a real sort of pinch me moment.
And what one piece of advice would you share to your younger self if you had to start all over again?
I would tell my younger self to take more risks and say yes more often. I think
Mhm.
in my own journey, I was in a stable corporate job that had taught me loads and was very happy. But I think that the opportunities that feel the most uncomfortable, such as me then subsequently moving to a teeny tiny startup and taking on kind of a different role from the one that I've been trained in, which was consulting, are the ones that turn out to kind of change your, path and trajectory. So I just think life's a bit too short, really. You've got to take some
Mm.
risks and say yes.
That's a really useful piece of advice. So I'm going to take that on board as well for myself. And what led you to work with Ignition?
So it was through my network, really. I'm in a lot of startup CFO and operator networks, and Ignition is a name that comes really highly recommended, to be honest, by a lot of sort of peers and founders and operators that I trust. And when I had the first chat with Alex, I sort of felt straight away that he understood what we were trying to do and understand the kind of challenges that a business like ours actually faces, but
Yeah.
also like how we wanted to work,
Mhm.
which is in a bit more of a flexible way. And that is a testament to the interactions that we've had so far. And I really see that from everyone at Ignition.
That's really good to hear. How did Ignition support you through this, and what difference did we make?
Yeah, we've worked on a real range of matters with Ignition, with yourselves, and I think that is a really encouraging sign. I mean, when we first worked together, it was support on corporate activity. It was on our first acquisition, not
Yeah.
something we've done before. Something that required a lot of hand holding, lots of kind of complexity in some of the A&A M&A mechanics, and that was really valuable. And so since then, we've partnered with yourselves on our more kind of regular cadence and matters. So we recently completed a small internal fundraise, and everything was managed by yourselves. And I think really when you're a fast growing startup, you have to focus and pivot on many different things at once. And I think having a kind of legal partner who can support on that rhythm is really valuable.
What do you most value about working with Ignition and the Ignition team?
Yeah, so I think like as I sort of alluded to, Ignition really understand what we're trying to do as a business, and I know that sounds quite simple and basic, but it can be quite rare. I think Ignition think very commercially, so I really feel like your hands being held the whole way through, which is really valuable. It means that we can move quickly and make decisions with conviction, and that's really what a business at our stage needs.
That's really good to hear. And what keeps your spark alive inside and outside of work?
So inside work, it's really the team and what we're all kind of aiming to do, the mission. And we've got a really talented group. I'm always learning, with each day that I work from everyone around me, and I think that's something that's really energizing. And also, given what we're trying to do in our mission, the intensity itself is really energizing, keeps that spark alive. As I said, the stage of business, you get to do such a diversity of things on a daily basis, and you learn so much, and that's something that I really value. Outside of work, it's the usual things. We work in the events industry, and so that's both a kind of passion, both professionally and personally. We get to go to some incredible events for work, and we work with many amazing events. Many that sort of weird and wacky events that I wouldn't expect to going to. So summer and Christmas is always really fun. And outside of work, I love music and live events. I like playing music and drumming. I like taking my bike out on the weekends and exploring. I like giving, I guess, giving back to a cause. And outside of Togather, I'm lucky enough to work with a charity called the 93% Club. It's essentially focused on leveling the playing field and giving upskilling state school educated students into their professional work career. And so that's something that's really keeps the spark alive.
Thank you so much, Yousif. In terms of what book, video, TED Talk, quote, a single piece of advice you would share to the SME community?
Yeah, I think a book that somebody else suggested to me that really resonated with me is Hire with Your Head by Lou Adler. That's always my go-to when I'm sort of, sharing advice. It's a really good practical guide to hiring. And again, as I said, when you're in a sort of fast-paced startup, you move with a lot of speed. And what that also means is that nobody necessarily teaches you how to do these things. And it's a really, really hard skill. It's really difficult to get right. But if you do, it's the most impactful thing that you can do to achieve your goals as a business, to be honest. And so it's a really good read, given how transformative teams are. Really, what the core idea comes back to is that you should define the role by, what somebody needs to deliver in their first year, interview really intensely against evidence of having done that, and trying to kind of cut through the bias. So it takes a sort of evidence-based approach. I wholeheartedly recommend that to anyone.
I'm definitely going to read that. That sounds really interesting. Thank you so much, Yousif. It was great having you today. I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot, because I certainly have. Also, thank you for choosing us. We really enjoy working with you and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Likewise, pleasure. Thanks so much, Manpriya.